It's not every day that a game is described with the name of a gaming classic. Such is the case for Gunner's Heaven, called as the Gunstar Heroes of the PS1. On its release, Gunner's Heaven had a rough start. It amassed average to negative reviews, the latter calling it a poor clone of Gunstar Heroes. This sentiment was also echoed by some players, setting expectations to an extent. Setting reviews aside, the Gunstar Heroes label is not unwarranted as Gunner's Heaven takes heavy inspiration from it. Now with nearly 2 decades since its release, the mindset has changed to a more positive one. Some people have started saying this game is a hidden gem for the PS1. Let's take a look if the game is deserving of this new outlook. Spoiler warning, I have problems with this game. I realized while recording footage for this video that this game is not for me, and I'm probably going to be the only review with a predominantly negative take on this game. So please take what I'm saying with a healthy amount of skepticism. Gunner's Heaven or Rapid Reload in PAL regions was developed by Media Vision, who will later on create the Wild Arms series. It was released in both Japan and Europe in 1995, making this an early console title. If you're wondering why the game didn't come out in the US, it was because of Sony of America's policy against releasing 2D games during the early days of the system, an idea that's dumb back then, and even dumber looking back now. The game starts off weak. There's an intro scene which looks pretty, but falls flat. This is a constant for the game sadly. There's a lack in presentation, especially in storytelling and in-game cutscenes. This is a direct contrast to the in-game graphics, which look great. There's a lot of details in the sprites and the background, and the animation isn't too bad either. While some assets look and feel large, I don't think it detracts from the presentation and the game as a whole. The audio is fine as well. It has the high-octane action music that's expected from the genre. However, no track is specifically memorable, and I'd even argue they'll tend to blend together at times. Sound effects are good. Nothing too irritating, but nothing also stands out. Also, the Japanese version has voice acting, but it's off by default, which is definitely an odd choice. Moving on, the story is as follows. You play as Axel Sonics or Ruka Hetfield, treasure hunters who are looking for a legendary stone called Valkyrie. What does it do? I don't know. It's never stated. Anyways, a terrorist organization called the Pumpkinheads are also looking for the Valkyrie in hopes of using it for world domination. It's up to Axel and Ruka to get the stone first and stop them. It's a simple plot, but hey, it gives you a good reason to shoot things and make them go boom. The controls are also simple yet familiar. Square to shoot and optionally for melee. Pro tip, don't do melee. The game has a stronger emphasis on running and gunning than taking the time to toss an enemy. It's too risky and ultimately not worth it. Going back, X is for jumping, circle to use bombs, and triangle to change weapons. Yep, this game also has a multi-weapon system, but more on that later. Holding L2 allows you to stand and aim, giving you an option on how to deal with certain sections and enemies. A great addition to the controls in my opinion. Lastly, R2 is the grappling hook which allows you to reach high places. This mechanic is underutilized and not well thought out. It's a lost opportunity, sadly. Now let's talk about weapons. As I said earlier, this game has weapon switching. It's because each playable character has immediate access to all 4 weapon types. While there are overlapping themes between each character's armaments, that doesn't make them less distinct or useful. Each weapon behaves differently, so it's up to the player to discover which weapon fits a situation best. Now let's talk about the system these weapons follow. Gunner's Heaven's system is very unique, but I believe to its detriment. Weapons are charged up by obtaining crystals which are dropped by enemies. Charged weapons do more damage and behaves more efficiently than the default state. Now normally you'd think this acts as ammo or some sort of power bar that diminishes upon use. Instead, it's a countdown timer which only stops during a mid-boss or a stage boss. So as long as the timer is not at 0, the weapons are charged up. On the surface, there seems to be no problem, and I can even see what the developers were aiming for. They wanted the player to have a reason to be on the move and, well, run and gun. However, there are a few things that hold it back. For starters, there are certain parts of stages that have crystal drought, making the distribution of crystals unbalanced. This can cause false difficulty in certain parts of the game. The timer still counts down for a few seconds despite reaching a boss area. So if you're unlucky to enter the encounter with only a few seconds left, you're risking the timer running out. The last point, and this is from an overall look on the game, it feels like it's holding back some of the mechanics or designs of the game, such as the stage design and the checkpoint system. More on them later. Anyways, the game has a boost item which charges the gun to the maximum level. I'm not sure if it's here to counterbalance the weapon charge system, but if it is, it could be better. The boost is only for a short period of time, so it's like a tease, but it gives the player a chance to actually go all out. Sadly, you can't really reach this state by collecting the crystals as far as I know, so thanks I guess. Let's move to the stages. This game has 6 stages in total, technically 5 since the last one is a boss fight. The stages have a diverse set of themes making them all stand out. And I think it also helps that Stage 3 is an auto-scroller and Stage 5 is more of a traditional horizontal shoot-em-up, driving up the uniqueness of the stages. Sadly, the actual level design is too simplistic to the point of being bland. There's a lack of platforming and stage hazards outside of the enemies. In the few cases that there are, it's not engaging and you're better off moving along. This is a shame since the various themes and environments give the devs a lot of leeway in how they can make their stages. They missed the ball on this one. Press F for the grappling hook. The same can't be said for the bosses. Each stage has around 3 bosses, 2 area bosses which are the mid bosses and 1 guardian which is the stage boss. Like the environmental stage design, the bosses also stand out with how they look. They're big, they're tanky, and they hit like a truck. Boss attacks and patterns are different and they get intricate the farther you are in game. As far as I know, no encounter is too identical, and when you get down to it, most of the fights boil down to pattern memorization. If there's one problem I have, it's that enemy attack timings can be too tight to the point of being unavoidable. This can cause you to be stuck on one fight for a long period of time, and in turn, keep you in the stage for a long period of time, making stages seem and feel longer than they're supposed to be. Not to mention the checkpoint system, which doesn't help. Checkpoints in stages are usually the start of a section before the boss fight. Not a room or hallway before the boss fight, but an entire stage portion. This means when you die from a boss encounter, you have to go through an entire section and hope that you have enough weapon charge and life for the upcoming boss. This turns the experience into a war of attrition than just being multiple restarts, and it gets exhausting after a while. Speaking of lives, let's discuss it. Unlike most shooters, Gunner's Heaven has a health bar, which means players aren't a one-hit kill. This is a welcome deviation from the usual formula as it allows more room for mistakes and more playtime to learn the game. And in the chance you die, don't fret as this game has unlimited credits. Well, the JP version has unlimited credits. I read somewhere that the PAL version didn't go this route, and if that's the case, that's definitely a harder experience in my opinion. So as I mentioned earlier, I have problems with this game, and I'm gonna talk about them now. First is the huge difficulty spike from Stage 3 onwards. Look, I know that shoot-em-ups are challenging and I like to believe that I know what I'm getting myself into when playing games of this genre. But it really feels like from Stage 3 onwards, the game is expecting a lot from you. It started to feel like I was exchanging weapon power for the sake of survivability. I was placing my character at certain parts of the screen to maximize my health bar for boss fights at the expense of losing power crystals that can make my encounter easier. And if you take into consideration all the stuff I've mentioned, like the weapon charge system, the boss fights, and the checkpoint system, it becomes an exercise of frustration. To paraphrase a certain YouTuber, if the game wants perfection from me, then I think it's only fair to want perfection back. I already talked about my gripes with the weapon charge system, so I'll close it off by stating that a lot of my issues with this game is accentuated by this flawed system. Third, this game lacks multiplayer, which is a damn shame because I honestly believe this game would be fun with 2 players. We really don't know the reasons behind this decision, but some people have inferred that it's probably because of the huge sprites. All I can say is that it's another missed opportunity. My last problem with Gunner's Heaven is that I believe it's content with being a game inspired by Gunstar heroes. No offense to the game or its fans, because that's not the problem. The problem is that this game didn't take the opportunity to take the Gunstar Heroes formula and improve it. Instead, it tried to tweak stuff in a way that it took steps backward. At least, that's how I see it. That's why I keep on saying missed opportunity. Now, despite all I've said, and you might think I'm crazy, I believe this game is okay at best and below average at worst. There's obviously something to this game that would warrant the shift in public perception nearly 2 decades later. I think it also helps that this game takes inspiration from a gaming classic, so it could have gotten a lot of things worse. A year later, Media Vision would create their JRPG series Wild Arms and referencing the run and gun there. I still think you should give this a try even for casual shmup fans like myself, and it's worth adding to your collection. Good luck with getting a PAL copy though, I've heard that version costs more than the Japanese imports. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey there! I was concerned with this review. I'm probably the only one that has a negative take on this game, but I stand by it. Playing this game felt like a chore, and it was so frustrating that the stress even spilled into the script writing. Anyways, if you liked what you saw, then please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. I want to reach 100 subs before we reach the second half of the year, and we're so close, so please help out on that. You can follow me on Twitter at KenAthomos, and I also have a revamped Ko-fi page that explains what you get for following the page and giving your support. Links are in the description. Take care!